This edition of the Ridley Report is brought to you by...
Well, it's wonderful to have as our guest this morning Dr. Ron Paul, longtime congressman from Texas. Ron, we could talk about many of your achievements. In fact, I could take up the whole show just beginning to scratch your achievements. But I want to mention this morning the extraordinary thing you've done building on the work of the great Austrian economists, whether it's Mises and Rothbard and Hayek and Hazlitt, Sennholz. You have actually made the Fed unpopular in a lot of quarters. You've actually brought the central bank into question, which has, to my knowledge, never been true in this country. So all of a sudden, Bernanke's worried, and now it looks like you're going to be chairman of the Monetary Policy Subcommittee, be able to hold some interesting hearings. At this very time, people all over the world are questioning the Fed, questioning the new quantitative easing. There's real dissent, isn't there?
I think so, and I guess enjoyed the thought that maybe I helped a little bit, but it took a lot more than just me, because it took two things. It took a lot of other people who, have been talking about monetary policy and Austrian economics for a long time, as they have been doing from the Mises Institute. So that's one thing. But the other thing is that a lot of us were talking about this for many years, and it was falling on deaf ears. I think what has really helped us get some attention on this has been the total failure. I see this 2008 as a very special year in, the declaration of the failure of the nonsense that the Keynesians have been preaching and the whole idea of fiat money. And that has made it easy, so it has come together, and hopefully we have participated in doing something very positive, and that we can continue to do this in order to talk about what type of reforms we're going to have, because I'm working on the assumption that reforms have to come, that you cannot maintain the system this way. And I fear that the reforms will come from another angle, and that will be internationalism. Not just an IMF fixed exchange rates, but an IMF worldwide fiat currency. So that's why our work is cut out for us, and sometimes they take advantage of the chaos. We see the chaos as an advantage. They've messed it up so we can offer an alternative, and we've gotten some attention. But the other side, who want worldwide government and worldwide control of the monetary system, also see it as an advantage, and those are the people that we'll have to compete with.
Well, you mentioned the Keynesians. John Maynard Keynes, of course, famously called for a world currency, a world fiat currency. He called it the Bancor. He wanted a world central bank. Is this what we're facing? I remember when the Trilateral Commission was first established, its key job, as delegated to it by David Rockefeller, was a bringing together of, first of all, creation of a European central bank, and then combining it with the Bank of Japan and the Federal Reserve into a world central bank. I guess they might have to do it slightly differently now, but this has been their goal for a very long time, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think so, and I think they're going to continue, so the chaos to them sometimes is an advantage. That's sort of the way foreign policy works, too. There were desires to pass a Patriot Act and desire to invade Iraq, but when a chaotic event occurred like 9/11, it wasn't that they thought up these new things to do. They're just looking for opportunities. So in monetary policy, they're always looking for opportunities, and they're more or less here. I think they're content to keep the status quo going as long as they're benefiting and they can, satisfy enough people. But when it breaks down, then they use this as an advantage to promote their agenda. And it's going to be a significant fight. But I think there's reason to be encouraged, because, just like you say, more people are thinking about this now. And when they spontaneously start talking about ending the Federal Reserve, that we're making inroads. So if the grassroots are now saying that we don't need the central bank and they're not our friend, it might be pretty hard for them to be convinced that, what we need now is a super Federal Reserve, a worldwide Federal Reserve under the United Nations and the IMF. So we have to keep working on that to make sure that people resist it, because if they resist, it's going to be much more difficult for them to impose it on us.
Ron, I'm noticing for the first time ever, coming from the German finance minister, a subordinate government of the U.S. openly criticizing the Federal Reserve. I don't remember anything like that ever happening. And then, of course, we have Brazil and China and other places being worried about what the Fed is doing, worried about currency wars, worried about in what used to be the competitive devaluations in a new mode about increased protectionism, all of the things, of course, reminding us of other aspects of the 1930s.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, although the internationalists, the one world government people are very powerful, and they do have a lot of influence, and we need to fear them, I think two things will contain them. One is the market. Just remember how the Bretton Woods was supposed to be propped up, but finally the market overwhelmed them and it broke down, and that's when gold broke loose from $35 an ounce. The other thing I've always assumed to be the case, I've not proven correct yet, but I don't think they can kill nationalism. And we like to be called, Americans, and I think the Frenchmen like to be Frenchmen, and the Germans, Germans, and I don't think the European Union is all that solid. I think that this fact that people like their independence, I wish they'd carry it all the way through to small units of government, all the way back to the individual, but I think there's a healthy desire for all people of the world to be identified, and that's what's so wonderful about limited government, that permits that as long as nobody wants to dominate each other. But there's nothing wrong with wanting to be with like-minded people and being friends with their neighbors. So I think there's reason to be optimistic that the market and the sense of nationalism will always be helpful to us.
Are you planning on moving to New Hampshire for more freedom? Do you think you can make it here by autumn 2011? If so, or if maybe, drop by pledgebank.com/next1000. That's where folks are making the promise they'll be here soon. Hover your virtual pen indecisively over the sign-up button. Then press it.
In remembrance of lost liberty.
Tell the world that one more person has had enough and is joining arms with the hundreds upon hundreds who have already fled the nanny states and settled here as freedom activists. Don't delay. Time is running out to make the pledge. Next 1,000.
She enjoys her leisure time.